Hello, Blazor fans. Welcome back to the show. I'm going to get right into things today. I've got an app to build, and I've only got like another week or two to do it. And I have travel next week. I'm going to be at the Big Blue campus of Microsoft next week. So, busy schedule coming up, and there will be no stream next week because I will be at the Channel 9 studios doing some recordings. So, I've got to get some of this stuff done. I may be working on several plane rides over the next week here. So, some good Flutter chat in the chat room, by the way. The Flutter demo I did miss. I haven't had time to go back and watch it yet, but I heard it was really cool. So where they swapped out the rendering engine of Blazor from the web to Flutter for mobile. So apparently that's a thing, and it sounds pretty cool, but I haven't got to look at it yet, so I just have to take all of your words for it. Yeah, I guess Big Blue would be IBM. They call them blue badges over at Microsoft because part of the badge is blue. I don't know, they must have been blue back in the day, but anyway, I got some events to go to up there, and they've been kind enough to open the Channel 9 studios to me again. So I thought I would stop by and give them some Blazor talk. We're going to be talking about, it's going to be Robert Greene on the Visual Studio Toolbox, and we will be talking about Blazor. I think we're going to cover some quick, frequently asked questions of Blazor on the show. So we'll probably talk about code behind and validation, authentication, and identity, and just show some quick demos for people who haven't spent too much time in Blazor yet, which there are a lot of. People are just learning about Blazor, and there's a lot of onboarding that we need to do with folks. So it'll be a good show. Usually about a half an hour. Don't know when it'll air yet. Usually I don't know that until about a week, 2 weeks out. But it's nice to be out there with Robert Greene on Visual Studio Toolbox, talking about Blazor again. If you haven't seen Visual Studio Toolbox, if you go to channel9.com, or no, it's channel msdn.channel9.com, right? I think I always search for it. It's easier to find by searching for it. channel9.msn.com. Channel 9, if you go to shows, Robert Greene's show is Visual Studio Toolbox, which I've been on quite a few times now. And Robert's a great host. He's got great guests all the time. So check his show out. I will be on there soon. Once again, talking about Blazor. And he's been busy, man. It's been a little while since I've looked back at the page, but I need to get into some BlazePort today. Like I said, I got a busy schedule with this thing. I got to get it done before the event Codepalooza comes up. That's not my screen. That's not my app. Where did my app go? It always wants to load off screen, and it's not loading at all. What's it doing? Control F5. Come on, Visual Studio. Hey, McNerdius, welcome back. Binary Chef's in the chat room. We've got folks from all over the globe. We've got someone from Algeria in the chat room. Coefficient's back. Mr. Chris Sanity, congratulations on the Microsoft MVP status. Welcome to the MVP community. Is my workshop in the morning or afternoon? I believe my workshop is all day, Binary Chef. I have to check. It is an 8-hour workshop, so I'm going to assume that it was scheduled for all day. Let's take a look here. Codepalooza. I am all day, full day workshop at Codepalooza. We're going to do the Blazing Pizza Workshop, which I need to rewrite my prereqs and get those out there. You're very welcome, Chris. It was a really easy one to do. Let's just say that. It was you had a good back catalog going already, so I think just offering up a few tips on how to organize that stuff is all you needed, man. Why is... Oh, okay, I know what it's doing. Let's see here. I was trying to get to... My app here is finally running. And we're going to get into some BlazePort. I want to take the left hand of the screen here and make it look like the right hand of the screen, but with some inputs. So what we're going to do today is make this form a little more UX friendly. I hope. It's an idea that I'm hashing out. But I need to get this done for CodePalooza and write a talk about it in about a week's time now. So we're going to input data over here. I think I have an idea how to make these look nice. We built these flyout menus over the last few shows so we can select our information. I need to freshen that one up a little bit. We're showing numbers, the actual IDs selected instead of what I want to display, which is the text right there. And then we need to do the passenger tab here yet. And then I want, once that's done, that information to show over here. And I'm trying to figure out exactly why this panel is so far down on the screen here. I think it has something to do with these and the placement of them. So they need to be inside of a row. They are outside of that row right now. Let's drop these down into the column medium 6. We'll do some responsive work on this later. I really wish there was a faster iteration. I'm going to run, I think this will speed up the process here, because I want to get this as near real-time updating as I can. So I'm going to bring up my command line. And I'm going to navigate over to the application source. And then we're under, let's see, BlazePort. Oosh, I've got a couple copies of that directory up there. I'm going to find it a lot easier by doing this. Open in File Explorer, it was under BlazePort. BlazePort, there we go. Command line here. And then I will do .NET run. Oops. .NET run. Or .NET watch. Run watch. Run watch? Watch run. I think it's run watch. And this should make our app load as we build it. So I don't have to keep Control F5ing. Actually, if that even does anything, come on. There we go. Do I have to specify with .NET Run Watch that I don't want debugging enabled? Because it will load a lot faster if I don't have debugging enabled. Is it dash question mark or is it dash help? Let's see. Publish, remove, run. Where's run? There's watch. Will this give me all of the run commands? Yes. No build. I don't want no build. I guess this will be without debugging by default. .NET run watch. And we will let that run in the background. I'll kick this guy off the screen, and we should be on. Actually, I'm going to put it over on another screen, so I don't want to cover up the wonderful chat room we've got. Yeah, hot reload would be nice. I hear a lot of people turn off hot reload on their Angular and React apps anyway, but it would be nice. But man, this is a lot faster, so we'll keep this around. I've got some rework to do on this because the more I tinker with it, the more I break it. So configuration release. Let's see how this runs, and if it's nice and smooth. I don't know if I want to put it in release mode. It might run a little faster, but then it always has that bug where it puts the dual set of bin directories out there, and I don't know if that's still an issue, but it was for a while. All right, so we've got our pickers. That needs to be shrunk. That one needs to be smaller. There's no text on them. Let's mess around with those real quick. Let's get those all formed up. All of our fly-up panels are at the bottom right now. So that one's got a width of 25. These are custom components that I built using the Telluric UI for Blazor, the animation container. 50%. No, it is 50%. I want 25%. And these width values might change over time. What I might need is some way to identify the screen real estate, and then based on that make the width of the panel different, because on mobile these are broken. Here I go trying to control F5 because it's a habit. Let's see, did that reload my app completely? No, it did not. So my watch didn't run. Do I need to manually build it? I thought .NET Watch would rebuild my application when I changed my index.razor file, but it didn't. Did I do it backwards? Is that what it is? I think I need to rerun that command. I did. Oh, yeah, it's locked. So let's go back to the command console here. I think I wrote that backwards when I did. I did .NET run watch. It's watch run. I think every other command line tool out there is the opposite way. I think it's Webpack is double dash watch at the end. And for some reason, .NET, it's inverted, and it will always catch me off guard forever. And ever and ever and ever, because that's how my brain works. Or doesn't work. Let's see. Yeah, that's better. Now I'm not flying this thing out half the page. So we'll accept that. So those forms got fixed up. And then when we change, we already have on change events in here. So when I change my port of departure on this change, I want to take that panel, which was the departure panel, and I want to call, oh, this is going to change the signature of this. Await. Because of the animation, we're awaiting, and it's going to be hide. What's happening here? What happened to IntelliSense? Await. Departure panel. Come on. What is it doing? Let's try it without the await. Departure panel dot hide async. So I can call hide async. This needs to be await. Oops, nope, nope. Async task. Now I can type await. Boy, it was being stubborn about that. Really stubborn about that. So I want to hide that on async, on departure port changed, and port of entry changed. I also want to do the same thing on a different panel. So I want the just put the word panel in here. It should bring it up. Departure ports. Nope. 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 Panels. Destination panel. Let me double check that. I've got some bad naming in here. I need to go back and rename some stuff. I don't like some of the names I chose. I never am happy with those, though. If you watched the show enough, you probably know that. This is the destination panel. Okay, so that was the right name. Destination panel. We'll hide that. Async. Task. And that should cause the panel to close as we select our items. So now off screen, I'll show you what's going on off screen one time here. Every time I save, it says file changed, started, and then it recompiles the application. And then once I see this line now listening on localhost, I know I can go back and refresh my app, and the app has already been reloaded. So I don't have to keep control F5ing habitually. So now I can click on departure. I can select Mars. Ooh, so that's a problem. I have to select Earth and then a drop down for it to close. So when I have a single location, there is no selected event change until I actually toggle it. And now I selected nothing, so the whole box went away. Oh, man. Let's see. How can I deal with that? So the problem is, if I select a location that has no ports in it, it automatically selects the only port of travel, and then there's no change event anymore. So, oh, thanks for following, Boss Corm. Is that with an M? Boss Corm? Yeah, I thought it was corn for a second. Boss Corm. Thank you for following. Appreciate that. So I need to either manually close it, or I need to put like a select button or something in there. Let's see. So when I change my location, what it does is it selects the... I'm purposely doing that to try to make things easier. Let's see what happens if I take this line out. See if it will clear that up for me. I'd really like an Omnibox type of experience in there, where I have a search box that I type in the values and it lists them out, and then I select from that. But that component's not available to me. I don't want to spend time building it right now. So I want like a combo box instead. That would make things a lot easier. I won't have all these cascading drop-downs happening. So that did that. Let's see. I need to do the same for this one, so I don't have to select that anymore. So this was me trying to be helpful and causing the user more work. Now that I've changed the UI, so there's no more defaulting it. It has to be set up that way. I can go ahead and remove these. I think I'm going to keep that, so it will automatically close now. And next, while that's compiling, let's go over here to the, that's a drop down. I don't want that. Let's clear some of these tabs out. I'm not working on the flyout panel or the configuration form. Not in the admin section anymore. I am on the index page. That's what I want. And I want things to have some punctuation between them. Trip distance, boom, and time. Save that. So that changes saving. We should have our, oh, it's offline still. It's recompiling in the background. So I don't want to make any more changes while it's compiling, because then it's going to kick off another compile. So we have our 4 flyout panels. We're going to need one more here in a minute. We'll need the passenger count. But I want to fix some things first. So let's see. We've got our date. These now should both work. So I can select Earth. Let's do Ghana Space Center. Whoops. I want to click that one again. And then the moon, we will land in the Sea of Tranquility. Both of those close on their own. We'll put a passenger picker in here in a minute. And then on our other side here, we've got a nice separated look here. We'll do the same on that side as well. So on this side, we have H2 tags. Those will get changed to something else. I think what I might do is try using input boxes, but not making them editable. We'll try that. For now, we need to put a label here. Label. Let's see. Put travel date. And let's see. I'm gonna peek at some other websites again. Delta had a good setup. We're gonna have something similar, but not exactly. So they're just using, they're not even labeling theirs. Oh wait, yeah, they are. From. So this is the kind of search box I want, but we don't have this yet. That will replace our dropdowns eventually. So they're not even labeling it, they're just replacing the placeholder text. Maybe I won't put labels in. I kind of like that approach. Still need to figure out what kind of input component I want there. Hey, Blazor, Mr. Magoo. How's it going? Chris's type ahead control. I might be able to do that. I don't know if I want to try to put anything else in place right now since it's working. It is working. That's something I would like to have later on. So I don't have 2 selections. You just start typing and select one item. What I do need to do is fix the input box there. Probably need a little bit of padding in here too. This full screen experience is nice, but the inputs are riding up on the side of the screen. I don't know if that's great. Let's see here. What can I do? Oh, I need to add some fields to my form. And my trip configuration form, I have the selected port of travel, and I have the selected port of entry. I'm going to actually remove this setting here and create a new display setting. This is all the form data that powers that form, but I also need stuff at that presentation level. So if this represents the ID, maybe I should put ID there. Let's do a control RR, which is a rename, selected port of entry ID. Even though it's not an integer, it's still going to be an ID number. Selected destination, control RR, ID, oops. So I'm going to make these ID, and then I will make a new property. Come on, ID. Gotta love when the tooling gives up on you after you make 2 mistakes. Selected departure. So they're actually integers, but they're represented as strings because that's what drop-down lists return. So that's why those are strings like that. But they actually are integers. And then we'll make a copy of these guys. Because I'm lazy. I don't type things. I don't need the required. I'm going to copy them. They're going to get red underscores. Probably should have copied them before. Well, I know I can't rename them if I do it that way. I did this the right way. So now I can capture the actual string value as well. And let's see, I renamed all those. These are the visual representations. Selected port of travel will equal, this is going to be the default value. Actually, I like the delta approach, from and to. Should probably go back and just rename everything from and to. Alt D and then rename. Is Alt D and Control RR the same shortcut? Curious. Tools. Is it under Edit or Tools? I never, yeah, refactor, rename, Control R, Alt D. I don't see Alt D on the list. Is Alt D. My fingers don't want to hit that. Alt D? That doesn't work for me. Is Alt D Visual Studio Code, maybe? Sorry, being oblivious, I guess. I don't know Alt D. Oh, Control D. What does Control D do? Control D? Oh, that's duplicate. Gotcha. Gotcha. All right, so we've got the selected value now. So I'm going to go into this. I may not need all those variables, but I put them there for now. We've got the port changed. And when we change the port, we set the selected ID. And I'm also going to selected, you know what? I don't like those names. I don't like them. I'm going to say from and to for those. So form, so selected value form dot from equals, and then I want to grab the let's see, which collection did that come out of? If I'm looking at the ports and selected destination, and then I have, okay, so the collections are not on the form. I've got some things, some concerns, I think, mixed that I'm going to have to go back and separate back out. The index page itself, let's go to the index code behind, has departure ports and destinations. So from, there's my line I was on, from is going to be departure ports selected value. Oh, jeez. This string stuff is annoying. So I'm ranting on this because the selected value, it's an integer, but drop-down boxes won't return an integer. They have to return a string because that's what they do. So I've got to parse it back into an integer. So I've got to say int parse selected value and put that into the array, and then take the name off of it. So we're going to be departing from the name, and we also need to do the same on our port of entry. So some data transformation back and forth there. What a pain. We will then give the name like that. So now I should have a nice display when I go back to my app, and it is recompiling. So while it recompiles, I'll talk through what I just did. So when I select that last dropdown, I'm going to get the selected value, which is a string. I'm going to set the selected port of travel ID because that is the value that will go back to the to either a database or other API calls to identify which port of travel I'm on. It also powers the next drop-down box. But I also need a text display. So I don't want the ID shown on the screen. I want that in the system, though. So now I'm going to go back, and inside of that array of ports, I'm going to grab the index number of the selected value and then just display the name for it. So now when I close my box, my screen displays the name and not the integer. Oh, that didn't work. I've got something wrong here on my from and tos. I'm not displaying that value. So on my main page, I'm still displaying the ID, which no ID is selected yet. So my form from and my form to need to go in those boxes. So I was still displaying the old information. At least the positive note on that is the refactoring tools renamed them properly. But they were still not the new properties that I had created that the tooling couldn't know. And it's recompiled, so we can go back. Now we should have the word from and to. If I click from, I get a flyout, Earth, Vandenberg Air Force Base. Okay. What did I do wrong here? Is the index not coming? Why did it come back as... Did I select it from the wrong... I selected the wrong array. Let's see. On port changed, select a port of travel. No, I do have the right one. Departure port is the box, the drop-down box, that is powered by departure ports. The selected value should be that of the one that I picked out of the box. that should correspond back to this value. How did the ID number... Oh, I know why. Oh my gosh. One of these things is not like the others. Jeez, I am so tired today. I'm blaming being tired. I am. Because this is just a stupid mistake. This is just me just doing something really dumb. This is a selected ID, not the selected index of the array. That's not ever going to work. That was just not the right thing to do. Good Lord. I could use index of and get it that, or yeah. That's exactly what I need to do. I could do where. I could use a query and say where. I need to find the ID of the item, not the actual indice of it. So it's going to be where, let's see, x equals ID. Yada, yada, yada. Why can't I get name off of this? Nope, I don't want where, I want first. First or find would work here. There we go. I need to grab that item, that object out of the collection, not the index of it. Oh boy. It's Friday. Fridays are good if you don't plan on working all weekend on something. I'm sure I will find some way to keep myself busy this weekend, not relax. That's just a silly mistake. Holy cow. Yeah, so grab the first item that is equal to that ID and then return the name of it. That's awful verbose. I know there's got to be a better way to do that. Seems like index of would work as well. And we are back after the recompile from Earth, Vandenberg Air Force Base to the moon, Sea of Tranquility. Yay, it works. It works. It's a nice nice UX there. What'll really make this look nice is some icons and some graphics around it. We have a calendar icon up here, maybe a little spaceship icon on these guys facing in different directions, identifying that this is leaving and this is entering. And then we need passenger count. Passenger count. All right. I don't know if we need a whole flyout menu for it, but we will. Nice job, McNerdius. That is what we need. We need one facing either direction, though. Did you draw that yourself? I keep looking down at the chat room like that's where the camera is, too. That doesn't help. Did you draw that yourself? Right. I'm here all week, folks. Let's see. So we need our passenger count here. I'm going to follow suit with the bad practice I have here so far. So when I update this, I can update them all together. Not on abort. Click on click. Show async. I don't have a thing yet to show asynchronously. Equals. I'll show something here that I don't have. Roll is button. Roll is button, even though I plan on getting rid of it. I don't know why I'm doing that. H2 form passenger count. And I need a flyout panel for that. Pop, pop, flyout panel, flyout panel. Need to ref it. And it will be passenger panel. It's a small panel as well. I think these flyout panels I actually want to have at 100% when they are on mobile. Because if you're on a small device and you tap that screen, that selection will be the entire screen. Then you can tap it again, it will go away and you'll get your app back. I think that'd be a nice mobile experience, but I need a way to identify that you're on a mobile device to change that value. Don't know if I can do that yet without some JavaScript interop at the very least. I do need an edit form on here, I think. This is almost proof of concept ready, and then we can go back and make it even prettier. I have all my panels here. Now I need a passenger panel. Passenger panel. I think I named that passenger panel. Yep, passenger panel. And I can come back to the bigger form here. And I can take out the passenger panel from it. And I can drop it in here. I don't need the labels on it anymore. The validation should have stayed in the form. So believe it or not, all those validations will work, even though the components for the validations are not in the form. They're actually inside of the model, though, so they will still validate. And then I need to open and close this guy, and this will be passenger panel. I really like that it works this way. So I can always validate the model even without any of the UI inputs on the page. That is really cool. We still have some other inputs too. I don't know if those belong in the app yet. Oh, I'm getting a compiler error. What's not working? Error list. My app is locked. I think I might have tried to control F5 in there. So I have like muscle memory of just smashing the rebuild button, and I think I hit that a few times while I was typing, and my console's blowing up with red. This is my console right now. This is not what you want to see when you look over in your console. It's like all this red stuff. There's a couple errors that I fixed too that were in there. So it's back up, and we can run it again and check it out. 0. That needs a better text. 1, 2, 3. Close. I have to manually close that. We're going to change that to something else. Let's see. I think I may have something useful. We have the telluric UI for Blazor. Everybody knows that by now. Telluric.com. Actually, I'm going to search Kendo UI icons. So the telluric UI for Blazor, the CSS and HTML, it inherits some of this from Kendo UI. Kendo UI is our JavaScript product. The JavaScript bits themselves are not in the Blazor product because it's C# and we wrote it from scratch. But the graphics and style sheets and all of that stuff, it's the same across like 5 different products we have. So there's no reason to reinvent the wheel when it's all going to be the same when it renders out in the end. But there should be an icon in this library that I can use to represent some peoples. There we go. User. All right. So let's do this. And inside of our people panel, our passenger panel, instead of putting a number value here, let's put let me try to be clever. For each, for I length, we have a max of 4 passengers. I'm going to take out this binding, and instead I'm going to insert a telluric button. I don't have a namespace for this, so I need to go to my imports file, and oh, components button. Why am I not getting a button? Telluric button. How dare you? What is this thing doing? Telluric button. I have it here. I can do it with the ultra verbose namespace. I don't want that. It's in my imports. Telluric Blazor components button. I used a button in here already, did I not? Why am I not getting the highlighting? Let me take it out of the for each, see if it's something to do with that. Telluric button. There it goes. Why did I not like it in my for each loop? For tab. That's how lazy I am. I probably couldn't write a for each loop without that. Thank you, Visual Studio. I blame you for my laziness. Oh, now it's going to highlight. Wow. Look at you. You're fancy today. All right. So my telluric button, I want the icon to be the @icon name person. So I've got 4 buttons with a person icon. And I saved it, and it recompiled, and it is ready to see. No, I didn't save it. Save. I at least got to save it. Oh, now you're going to... No definition of person? Why don't I have an icon name of person? Icon name. If it has another name, it may not be listed as person. Did I close? I closed that window. Okay. I was misspelling it. But now, why am I getting no person? Percent? I don't want a percent. I can just put the string person in there, by the way, and it will work. This is supposed to be helping me, not hurting me. Sometimes we have multiple icon names for easier usability. So that person icon might also be called something else, and only one of them is listed in IntelliSense. So let's scroll down again. Oh, user. It never was person. Why did I assume it was? User. Boop. There we go. User. And then we can do a fancy on-click event, but I want to see if this actually renders out correctly first. We'll get fancy with it. We will use the index to identify which value the icon is that we clicked. So if I go back to my app now, and I fly my panel out, now I've got these, and I can wire up a click event to those. I can say on click equals, wait a minute. There's going to be 2 on clicks. Why did it IntelliSense changed that one on me. Didn't want that one. I want this one. I'm going to say on click, and then when I do my thing here, when I handle the event, I want to, I need to set up an event first. So let's set up a event handler. It's going to be public async task on passenger count clicked. Wait, these are all selected. Passengers selected. I want to pass in an integer. We'll call it value. So this isn't rocket science. Ha, pun intended. And we will set the form dot passenger count to the value. Passenger count selected. Change that to count. And we need to async or await passenger panel hide async. Ah, Chris, got to go to school. Take it easy, man. Is that school for you or school for your kids? You going catching a degree? What are you doing there, buddy? If you got time to answer, you can answer. If you don't, no worries. We'll catch up with you next time. I'm being nosy, by the way. It's probably none of my business. Well, that didn't work. Oh, I didn't wire it up. I got busy talking to Chris and never actually saved this. Let's see. On passenger count selected. And then inside of here, I can put I as the index of this. Oh, that's going to start at 0. Index equals 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can either put it, yeah, let's just put it here, +1. We could actually start the loop at a different index, but that's probably more confusing than just adding 1 to it. All right. It is building. So what I did here is we're doing a loop over 4 buttons. And after, as it loops, it's going to set up a click handler. They all the click handlers are the same, but they pass in a variable of the index +1 since it's 0 based. It's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, +1 is going to make it 1, 2, 3, 4. They all have an icon of a person's head. Little pawn looking icon. Looks nice, I think. Oh, it's going to be one of those days, huh? 5, 5, 5. Okay. That did not happen the way I thought it would. Actually, I want to inspect my button. I have my 4 buttons. Why did they all make 5s? That's so they're getting the max count, and then they're not getting labeled as it renders. I thought we could do that. I thought I would get 4 buttons that render out with the proper index. I could have sworn I've done this on radio buttons before and had the correct values show up. Very strange. I guess Is this not how we handle radio buttons in Blazor? Like, why is this acting so weird? Let's do this. Let's put the value of I in here. I want to see what it does. I'll just write it out. Oh, that's going to write literal the letter I at I. Gotta razorify it. I'm baffled. I mean, I know what it's doing. I don't understand why it's doing it, because don't use the loop variable I for the loop directly in a lambda expression. Oh, it's because of the lambda expression? So it has to be in a variable, in a local variable before the declaration, and then it will work. Of course it will. So the lambda expression gets lazy evaluated, I guess. Yeah, they all end up being, well, no. All right. So if we var this will do the same thing, won't it? It's because of the lambda expression, though, is what we're figuring out. I could have swore I did this with radio buttons, and it worked just fine. And now we're doing it here, and it is not working fine. I'm trying to hit Control F5 again. All right. I mean, I could just put 4 buttons on the page, and that would just be fine. Now I've got more code, I think. 1, 2, 3 lines of code to render 4 buttons. I could have just wrote the 4 buttons by now. So much for making this simple. Now I've got lambda expressions trolling me. But that did do it. So it's something to do with the evaluation of the lambda expression. Thank you, McNerdius, for not only the comment, but the link. So it has something to do with the delegation of everything, and I will read this later. But yeah, the lambda expression is the problem. I would say if I was going to do more than 4 buttons, then this will work great. I'm actually going to roll this back and just put 4 buttons in here, because it ended up being about the same amount of code anyway. I mean, seriously, like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I don't need the count here. Actually, I'll leave the count there. I think that that didn't fare too badly. I wonder if I actually need the lambda with that. It won't. Yeah, because it'll... Oh, something failed. What's wrong? What's wrong, Visual Studio? Did I hurt your feelings? What is going on here? Oh, I don't have count there anymore. Oops. 1. Come on. Control Alt select is my friend. There we go. Yep, I broke dry to write 4 buttons out. But when the code to render infinite buttons is the same as the 4 buttons, might as well just write the 4 buttons. That's my rule of thumb, and I'm sticking to it. There we go. Boop. Boop. Yay. All right. we should be able to select our from, select Mars, Mount Sharp, select a location on Earth, and estimate our cost. And our form still submits and works just fine. If I go back, notice my validation still works. None of these UI components are inside of the form. They're all outside of the form, but the form still validates the model, not the elements that are in it. Not the UI inputs themselves, it's validating the model. So I can still do validation just fine with this setup. And then I can come back and select these. I probably need to I have a validation summary and regular validation items. I should change that somehow. I'm curious. I guess validation summary needs to be inside of the model validation because so maybe these should be inside of the model just so I can display the validation where it belongs. The only thing that can't go in the form is my flyout panels because of how they're rendered on the page. But I can still render validation around these triggers for my inputs. So this one goes up here. Passenger count goes here. And I know I've got one for selected destination, port of entry, ID. Put another one here. This is going to be selected port of travel, ID. Now I have my validation where it belongs. I don't need my summary validator. That's overkill. I already have the individual validation rules. So that is going to rebuild. We will beautify those form elements in a minute. Let's see here. This is our display side. These are all of our flyout panels. This should be good. This should be really good. Refresh. If we estimate, then we get our validation showing where it is appropriate. We can click our inputs. Oh, it didn't trigger. Why didn't it trigger that to go away though? Huh. So that's interesting. The validator trips the correct values, but it's not, I guess it's not bound. There's no data binding anymore. Is that what it is? We're not data bound to the values that are, we're setting them explicitly though. We didn't have an issue before. We're not changing the way they're bound anymore. Let's see, we took out the validation summary. I don't believe the validation summary has anything to do with the way that it's triggered. So the validation shows, but it doesn't go away as we change the items out. I'm not sure why it's doing that. It's still validating those values, and those values are being set. I don't think I need like a state has changed or anything in there to make that happen. Shouldn't anyway. I think that would be overkill. I hate just spamming state has changed everywhere just to see if it fixes problems. So if I blow up my validators, then I select my items, they're not causing... So this is weird because that gets displayed. So state has changed has happened, apparently. But the required field didn't go away. And I have to click the button again to trigger validation again. So validation, I guess it must be triggered on the inputs that are in the form. So I can't have those outside of the form and have them trigger properly. Let's try tossing a state has changed in here. I hope this doesn't interfere with my animations. We'll just put one on the departure port and see if that clears the validation out for us. I think that maybe what's happening is the events are happening outside of the edit form. Oh, I need to trigger validation first. Then I need to select a thing. And nope, it did not update. That stinks. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Not what I wanted to do. So I broke validation, it looks like. Is there something on my form I can call to trigger validation? This just got a lot more customized. It was working so good. Maybe I just skip over their validation and roll my own. I need some titles. I mean, I really like that. It's out of the box and I don't have to write any other code, but now I broke it. It doesn't do anything. So I'm always going to show that. What can I trigger? I just want to see what I can do with this manually and see if there's anything in here. My form. Oh, I didn't make a reference here. This is going to be edit form. See what APIs I've got I can call. Maybe I can trigger this manually. On valid submit. Set parameter async. Yeah, I don't have any way of updating model dot. No, that doesn't do anything but give me the model back. I can get the edit context from it. I don't think that has anything. On field changed. An event is raised. I can raise. Can I raise that event? Validate. There we go. Validate. Bingo. Got it. That I think actually will work. So I'm going to raise the validate event. So let's see. We got crickets in the chat room. Am I doing this okay? Am I am I breaking it enough that it's at least entertaining someone? So trigger validation. I can select my thing and, oh, did I put it on the right? Validate. Departure port changed. Validate. It didn't work. Why didn't it work? So validate doesn't cause, oops. Validate doesn't cause the validation to actually trigger on screen. It's probably giving me back like a Boolean value or something, right? Validating. Validate. I have validate. I don't have validating. Is modified. Is marked as modified. Notify field changed. Ah. Oh, but I need to tell it what field. Field identifier. I don't know what a field identifier is. Validating requested. Validates the edit context. Returns a Boolean value. It doesn't trigger the event, though. Event that is raised when the validation state has changed. So I wonder if I can... mark model as on modified. Clears all flags. Notify field changed. I can notify that a field has changed, but I need this field identifier to pass in. I don't know what that is. Field identifier. Identifies the field whose value has changed. Yes, but... oops. I don't know what the field identifier is. Let's see what kind of properties it has. Model, field name. So if I have notify field change and I say form is, well, that's not the model though. I mean, it is the model, but the form isn't of that type. Model. I can get the model out, but I don't have a way of getting the fields. I'm totally using this not the way it's supposed to be used, so I don't blame anybody for not being able to... oh, field. There we go. Field. And then put the string of the field. This is so hacky. I am just breaking this thing all to bits. I'm just... poor Blazor. I'm just putting it through some paces here. The field would be... the field would be... from. From would be the field. Name... oops, I'm putting @ signs in here now. Name of... this is getting so long. My form... or no, not my form. Trip configuration dot. Oh, this is horrid code. Why did I do this to myself? What have I done? This is such a rabbit hole. Look at this code. Look at this. This is ugly. So I'm grabbing a reference to the form. I'm calling notify changed. And then I have to traverse the edit context, grab the field, and then I'm using name of to specify the field name because I don't want to put a string. Because if I put a string, then if I rename the field, then it will break everything and nobody will know why. So I've got this big ugly pile of code here to do something simple that I probably shouldn't be doing to begin with, because I had the bright idea of taking all my components out and putting them in flyout panels and making it pretty. This is my life. This is my job. This is what I do for a living. This is bizarre. This is... Okay, so I didn't break anything. Like, okay, let's see if I fixed something. Port of travel. Select a thing. Select another thing. And it did nothing. At the end of the day, it still didn't do anything. Holy cow. I could probably just write my own validation at this point and trigger however I'd like, and that would be the end of it. Let me try. Notify field changed. Notify validation state changed. What does this want as an argument? Notify validation state changed. Doesn't take any arguments. Let's try that one. Just throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks, then go take what I've learned and show other people that they can break things too. I don't know if you have all seen, I'm sure you have by now. I have children, so we watch lots of movies. Oh, did nothing again. This is like Buzz Lightyear. I am falling with style. So there was no way for me to trigger this thing to change. Signals some aspect of validation state has changed. Some aspect. Not going to be specific about which aspect. We're just going to say something changed. But none of the validation is changing. The selected port of travel ID does change. The validation isn't updating for some reason or another. I don't know why. And I can't seem to get it to trigger. On field changed didn't work. Validation requested. And what does this want? This wants validation requested event args. Oh boy. Yeah. IntelliSense has gotten behind on me too now. On validation state changed. On validation. On field change. On validation requested. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to manually trigger that. What we can do is look at the source code for it and see if we can figure it out. If I can't, I'm just going to roll my own. It's a real shame, though. I thought I could do this easily. I am pushing Blazor really hard, though. So we're going to go to the ASP.NET Core source code, because that's where we belong. And we're going to go ASP.NET Core, source, components, and components again, source again, forms, edit context. And edit context. So here's our events. On field change. On validate requested. What triggers these? Notify field changed. Get field state is modified equals true. If it is, then invoke it. Field changed identifier. So notify validation state changed. Signals that validation has changed. On validation changed, invoke, passes itself, validation state changed, event args, empty. So we triggered that. It didn't do anything. I wonder if we do this and say my form dot edit context dot validation notify validation state changed, we trigger it and then say state has changed, then will it update it? We'll let that compile. We can trigger on valid state has changed, but it doesn't seem to do anything. It's going to invoke it. On valid state has changed. Where is that on valid state has changed? Is modified. Might have to set is modified to true manually first. Validate. Validate. Invoke validation requested. I don't know why that doesn't work either. You'd think that would do the trick. Just signaling validate should pop that behavior and make it work. Can't seem to manually get this to go off. Do that, that, that. Still nothing. Validate. Try that one more time with a state has changed behind it. So the form is getting set. Might want to set a breakpoint or some type of behavior. Let's actually do that. Let's set a breakpoint here. I don't know if we're in debug mode or not. We haven't determined that yet. We haven't tried to debug. From, oh, I need a trigger. Trigger validation. Boom, boom, boom. Nothing happened at all. Maybe I need to look at the submit button and see what happens when you submit the form. The edit form, the edit context has the events, but the edit form, forms, data validation, annotator, where's the actual edit format? Event callback, routing, compiler, should be under forms, right? Component base. Forms, there's the validators. Let's see. Validation, store, field state, field identifiers. This is not going well. Let's take a look at the validation bits. If I have, what's my validator called? I don't need that open anymore. Index. Validation message. Well, that's still not what I want. Should be able to trigger the entire form, the edit context, to refresh by calling validate. Validate should do it. Why is validate not working? I'm sure something is calling validate internally on this. If I could just find the darn component. Find file, edit form. There's my edit form. Edit context, edit form. So there's a delegate for the submit button. There's the model object. On submit, on validate, on valid, on parameter set. There's our error messages that we get when we specify too many things, too many event handlers. Handle submit async. On handle submit async, let's see. On submit has delegate. On submit invoke is valid. So here's where the validation gets triggered. Fixed edit context. Validate. So it's calling validate. If it's valid and it has a delegate, then it invokes the delegate. If it's invalid, it invokes the invalid submit async. So I'm going to have to roll my own solution, I guess, because I don't know why validate, when I trigger it, doesn't do anything. So I get the context and I validate it. Validation on submission. If I look at edit context, it has the validator in it. But nothing updates when I validate it. Raise an event when validation is requested. So why? So validate should do it, and validate doesn't seem to do anything. So I'm going to try one last ditch effort here, and I'm going to put a button on the page. It doesn't have to be a telluric button, but I'm going to use one just because. And I will say that I want to on-click I want to try to trigger validation. I just want to see if I click a button, if I can manually validate. And I broke tooling again for the 11th time this week. I'm going to try to trigger validation here. I'm going to say my form dot edit context dot validate. I don't really need to consume the value from it. Let's put it there anyway. Var is valid equals that. But the calling the method, I would assume, updates the fields, which I would also assume causes them to re-render. I just want to make sure I'm actually triggering this thing. Something has failed. What is wrong? Trigger validation does not exist. Trigger instead of triggered. Trigger. Did I misspell? Validate. Make this real easy on myself. Validate. So my button will cause validation to fire. My button is outside of the edit form. I'm trying to figure out if I can get the edit form validation to refresh from outside of the form. I can trigger it from inside the form with a button click on submit, but I can't seem to trigger it from outside the form when other things affect the field values. And I'm getting a compiler error that shows in the command line, but not in Visual Studio. Why is that? Error list. Oh, this says no issues found, but the error list shows that something is wrong. Debugger is used by another process. Let's make sure I saved everything. Build is starting. Build started. Build started. No failures this time. Error list still has stuff in it. There we go. Got it this time. Refresh our thing. Validate. So if I click validate, it didn't do anything. So I'm going to assume that... Uh-oh. Object's not set to an instance of an object. So it's got a null ref. Cannot send data if oh, that's because it broke. So when I trigger validation, something is broken. Estimate trip cost, that triggers validation. If I click my own validate, then I get a null ref. So if I go back to my value here, this form, do I not have the reference set? No, my form. Does it have to be at my form? From that. So I'm not getting a valid reference to the form. It's coming up null. That's why that I can't hit validate on it. I don't know if I can set a breakpoint here. Let's give it a try. So app is running. Refresh. Click validate. It blows up. I need to stop my console window. Control C over here. I need debugging. So let's run. So something with the reference isn't getting picked up. So the I'm trying to reference my form component and get the edit context from it. And it doesn't appear that the value is getting pushed back into that reference. So click validate, boom, edit form. is, oh, there's my edit form. I do not have an edit context is my problem. Oh boy. So the edit context doesn't exist, which is why I can't call any of the methods on it. This is why they're not doing anything. They were blowing up silently in JavaScript land. I have not made this easy on myself. I am not blaming any of these components for not working. This is outside of the box. And I don't know why I have a null edit context. So if I hit continue, even if I hit, oh wait, that's going to blow the app up. I can't do that. So why do I have no way of seeing the edit context from there? The form doesn't have visibility into the context from the way I'm picking up the reference to it. So what can I do to get it? If I try to grab it, let's see what I've got available here. Edit form, I can see the model. Maybe I'm addressing it wrong. Let's try stopping the application. My form dot model dot, that's not it either. That has no properties that I can use on it. It has no edit context. When does the edit context get set up and why can't I get it? So maybe because the fields are outside, but they validate. They do validate. I'm not talking about parking. Dad jokes. All right. Maybe the inputs do need to be in there. That's going to be a major pain, though. Okay. I thought I could tie these all together by doing this. So my flyout panels actually have their own form and edit context in there. I'm going to have to tear this all up and start over, I think. This is going to really suck, because this validation thing doesn't work. I can easily roll my own validation, though. I was trying to use what was built in. So the problem is I can't put my flyout panels inside of an edit, the main edit form, because it will render them in the wrong location. So this confuses people, or this confuses Blazor. If I put my edit form here inside of, or my panel inside here, we can try this again, but I'm pretty sure it's going to break it. It doesn't even build. Oh, I need to take out this reference because that didn't work. And this button because that's not there anymore. Save it. If I validate inside of the flyout itself, I have to validate the edit context that is on the form. So if I try to validate from outside of the form in one of these, let me double check this real quick. And something's not, oh, I don't have my watch running again. I turned it off so I could do debugging. So if I were to trigger it from one of these forms instead, then they may have, that might work. Boy, I'm going to have a reference to each and individual one of these though. So I'd have to have, I think it's going to end up being easier to just write my own validation. So each one of them ends up having their own form. I'm not going to save that yet. Let's double check this first. I think this is going to make the rendering hideous. Which one did I move? Wasn't that one. Was it this one? Was it that one? Is my date? Yeah, see, I can't put the validator inside of, or the panels, flyout panels in the form. If I put a flyout panel inside of a form, they render really weird. Because they're trying to, they're actually living inside of that form. They need to be on the app container. So can't do that. What happens if I do the departure form? But then they're going to be different edit contexts. So no, that won't work. So I think the issue is, since the components themselves are outside of the edit form, then they do not build an edit context. So putting the validation on or inside the flyout won't do anything, because the validation summary and the validation messages are internally looking at an edit context on edit form, which all of the flyout panels exist outside of. So putting it inside the flyout won't help. I'm almost certain of it. I think what I really actually am going to have to do, and let's try to test it. Let's duplicate here. Let's see, I didn't want to do those. Let's put inside of here an input number box. Give it a let's see, bind value to our form dot passenger count. Close that. Save it. So now I've got two items that are bound to the passenger count. This will actually create the edit context, I believe. That's why I didn't have one before. So there weren't any inputs inside of the edit form to create that context. I thought the model did it. That was my assumption the whole time. So now I have that, which is ugly. Says passenger count must be between 1 and 4. If I edit this, click 4, they're bound. Nope, that didn't trigger an update either. But if I click this, oh, that's strange. That's not the behavior I expected. I expect, oh, there it goes. Yeah, that did change it. Let's refresh that. I blow that up and click this button, make it 4. It still says it has to be between 1 and 4. If I drop that down, notice that when there's an onChange event inside of the edit form, that actually does trigger the validation, but events outside of the edit form do not. So what can I do here? Now let me try checking reference, my form. So I'm going to go back and put that in again. Let's see if I can undo. There's my form. I'm going to stop my console from running. I'm going to come down to the passenger count selected event, and inside of it I will grab my form and we'll grab the context, edit context. There should be one now. I'll trigger validate and see what happens, and we'll do this the first time. If nothing happens, we'll see if that edit context is still null, but I don't think it's going to be. I have to run it. I turned my run watch off. Thanks for the input, Janescu. You got me thinking. Got me thinking again. Got the old brain back on track. Thank you. And welcome back to the show. I know you've been watching frequently. Appreciate having you out there. So I've got the input there, even though I don't want it. I'm going to click this. I get my flyout. Oh, I forgot to trigger validation first. Trigger between 1 and 4. Select 4. Nothing. Not good. Same error. Console says object is null. How is there never an edit context to validate if validation is obviously working? I mean, if I come in here and I tick this, well, it's broken, but what if I tick this up? There's an edit context of some kind because it's validating. Change that back to 3. Then I blow up. Watch. I'm confused at how the component works internally. Null reference exception. There is no edit context. It's just not visible to me, I guess. There's got to be one, because validation is occurring. So this edit context.validate is being triggered. I'm just unable to use it for some reason. Very strange. So I can get the form and reference that, but the APIs are not there because there is no instance of it. I wonder. Let me put that back. Let me try something here. So I've got validate my form dot edit context. I'm just getting hacky again. Edit context equals new edit context. I can just new one up. Edit context, model object, constructs an instance of edit context. Good for me. Stop. Let's see if we get any compiler errors. We do. I need to pass in the model. It's going to be my form. No, it's not. It is form is the model. And I can't set a new. So that doesn't work. Model equals form. I can't set anything explicitly. So they've locked it down. Model is read-only. Model is read-only. Edit context is read-only because it comes from form.model. Edit context comes from the properties, the cascading properties of the component, I believe. So we can't set that either. So I can't do anything with it. I can't trigger it to validate. There's no validation because edit context is null. I can't set an edit context. It doesn't have one. It says it gets it from the model, which I've set. If I set an edit context, let's see what this is going to be. So what would an edit context be if I set it myself? That's what I don't understand. I'm giving it the model. And I make changes to the model outside of the scope of the edit form, and it doesn't change the model and validate it. No validation is triggered. There's no manual validation. No trigger for manually validating. I can submit it. I don't think that's going to help if I try to submit it. Let's see. Let's do some hackery again. Let's do this dot in valid submit invoke async. What is my submit? I have invalid submit does nothing. On estimate trip cost. This is my valid submission. What if I do my form dot on valid submit invoke async? No, be. Why can't I force it? Oh, I need the edit context. Oh my lord. So when onValid submit is triggered, it's pushing a edit context into that. The edit context isn't available to me, and I believe there's one there somewhere. Even though it says supplies the edit context explicitly, this isn't the same one that's used internally, I don't think. If I am in my, oh, that's the edit context itself. I probably could have rolled my own by now. I swear I'm missing something simple, though. Data annotations validator. See, this is able to get the edit context. I'm curious. Cascading parameter, edit context, get... Okay. So I have a data annotation validator. I'm going to try something here. Well, instead of grabbing it from here, which seems to be oblivious to where the edit context comes from, let's go into our data annotations validator. And is it data annotations validator that I wanted? Data annotations validator. Add a ref here. Just call it my validator. We're going to grab the data annotations validator and see if we can trigger the validation through it. This is the hack show today. The hackiest of hack shows. All right, this is what we do for a living, guys. Validator, my validator. Validation. I wish, is it Mr. Magoo that has the validation library? Or is that Peter Morris? I can't remember. I bet he would know. Because he has written something that takes advantage of this. My validator. My validator. Let's see. Data annotations validator. My validator. Now I have a reference to it. Now when I up my passenger account, I can say my validator dot, and I don't have access to anything on it. Why don't I have at least the edit context? It's a public property. Is it being hidden by tooling from me? Data annotations validator. My validator. Data annotations validator. So I can't... My brain hurts. Data annotations validator. There's no public properties on it. Yep, that's private. So what if I... Oh, man. What if I create something... All right, I'm going to take the... I'm going to try something even super hacky. And I'm just going to create a class here. Add a class of... I'm going to call it custom validator. I will inherit component base. I am going to create a cascading parameter of edit context. Blip. I have a cascading parameter of edit context. I am going to make it public. Good Lord. All right, so it's public and oh, no. it won't let me. So a cascading parameter cannot be public. I will make it public if I want it public. So I'm going to take that edit context and it will be called edit context. And I'm going to make it available to the outside world. And then I'm going to take my brand new component that I just built, which I don't see lighting up in the UI. Why? I have my component base. That should make it a component. Maybe I need to build it. Why do I not have a custom validator? Using BlazePort dot forms models, form models. There we go. It lit up. Okay. Now I can give a ref to my validator. I can go back to my code. I can get my validator, set it to a custom validator. And now my validator should have an edit context that then has a validate method. And I may be doing something wrong this entire time and just haven't realized it yet, but this is where I've ended up. Hacking away at this thing. There's apparently a way I can set this edit context through the component. I haven't figured that out. I'm going to trigger validation. I will then select an item. Hey, look at that. Look at that, it worked. Yay. So, I don't know why the API is hidden away, but it is. So I was right, calling validate does work. And edit context is there on the page somewhere. It comes from, so if I look at my form, when I supply edit form with a model, it should create an edit context. For some reason, I cannot get that edit context. It comes up as in null ref. However, it can assign itself through cascading parameters everywhere. So let's go see. There's got to be an easier way to do this other than what I just did. Find file, edit form. So here's the edit form again. It has a private field, edit context. If I look at parameter, no, that's additional attributes. It does have a public edit context. It has a public parameter of edit context. So this is set. This allows me to set it from the outside. But it says, if I supply the edit context explicitly, use this. If you use this parameter, do not use the model parameter. I'm using the model parameter so it can create its own. Since the model value will be taken from edit context.model. If I try to find edit context.model, though, it comes back null. When I have an edit, okay, specifies the top level model object for the form, and edit context will be constructed for this model, but it keeps coming back null if using this parameter do not supply edit context. Because when I try to reference edit context, I'm referencing this that has never been set. The one it creates from the model, and I'm trying to figure out still where that happens, ends up being fixed context, this private field that I'm not allowed to touch. So where does, okay, here it is. Aha, new edit context from model. On parameter set. When on parameter set is called, it looks at the two, and then it finally ends up creating a context from the model. So it ends up signing that to edit context, which I cannot access anywhere. And edit context is a parameter, not... It's for setting it only. It never gets set. It seems like when that gets set, it should also maybe set that in case I want to grab it. I don't know if that would cause other errors in the logic in here, but for some reason this is private. I can't grab it anywhere. But when it does get set, it gets put into... let's see. How do children get it then? How does it get passed down through the cascading parameter then? If there's no public version of it, cascading value, edit context, but it's not set. That's confusing me. So there is a cascading value parameter of edit context, which I can also set. This actually has two edit context parameters. So it has a open component, cascading value of edit context. So that's where it gets passed down, but how does it know the value there? Value fixed edit value attributes.add value. Yeah, so edit context is fixed, is true, value, child content, invoke fixed edit context. Close component. So there's a component inside that has a value of edit context. It creates a component with that value in it. Wonder if there's a way I can tap into it that way Very confusing. What I have works for now. All right. I think I've set my brain to empty finally. I did manage to get it to work, but I'm not too sure it's the best solution. I can take that label out of there now, or that input. Take that out. If I change the input from outside the system, it didn't cause validation. That bothers me too. So anything that triggers validation, you want to happen within that form. Otherwise, you could end up with a valid... Well, I guess you couldn't submit it, but it's not going to help your UX any. So if I trigger this, now I have my validation triggered because I have my custom validator in here. I will have to reach out to, I can't remember if it's Mr. Magoo or Mr. Peter Morris that has the Blazor validation. Peter Morris. I will have to reach out to Mr. Peter Morris. He's often in the show. I think he may have been in here earlier, actually. And I could probably dig into his code here. He has a validation tool as well that I don't know if it has any components in it. It helps configure validation between, there we go, add fluent validation, data annotation, validator provider. So let's see how his sample looks. Maybe able to glean something out of this. So he has an edit form, and then he has his own validate validator. So he rolled his own validator too, which can use either data annotations or fluent validation. Curious why the samples are different. It's not. So the validation component that he wrote works anywhere. So let's take a look at his validation component. See how it differs from the one I just created, which took nothing, by the way. Cascading parameter, edit context. He's injecting the service provider and then validates based on that. He's not hiding his away though. Well, it is private, I guess, because of that. So there's no API out there to trigger validation from outside the form. Ooh, what's going on there? That's something I need to look at. I don't want to get off on something new and shiny, but looks like those. I need to get rid of the H2, I think. That needs to not be there. So this is where I'm at. I think I figured it out. What I could probably do is, instead of inheriting custom validator this way, I could say data annotations validator. Maybe I can inherit that, and I don't need this, and I can just call, instead of edit context, I can say public oh, you know what would be easiest? I can do a public bool validate, which will then return a base dot. Oh, it's not protected either. It's private. So I can't even inherit and pull it that way. Yeah, I can't even get to it from inheritance. I was going to say I'll just extend the data annotations validator to do this. So instead of grabbing the edit context though, public validator, validate, just creating an API here. Just trigger the validation. Validate. Boom. That will at least free this up. My index.razor.cs is what I want. There we go. That's what I'm trying to get at anyway. So why is that still public void validate? My validator.validate. Build. I think it's a build issue. Doesn't contain a method. Yes, it does. Custom validator dot validate. Public void validate. Oh, come on, seriously now. My validator dot validate. Validate dot validate. Jeez. Running out of steam, folks. Running out of steam. Validate. So this project will need some more work. I will be getting it to the state of acceptable quality enough to do a presentation on, and then I will go back and revisit some of these techniques because I think they are bad practice. So we're going to force validation from the outside using a custom validator. It's interesting, though, that you cannot trigger validation from outside of a form. I get that it's a little outside the outside of what's trying to be done with Blazor, but I don't know. Maybe I never cared for model binding so much because anytime you get super custom with something, the whole model binding idea just starts to get in your way, and you're like, just let me set the values and get on with my day. Like I need to write custom code around it anyway, and now I've got all this model binding stuff in the way. Maybe I need to look at some Xamarin applications and see how they deal with all this, but model binding has always escaped me. I don't understand it. It's nice if everything lines up perfectly, but as soon as you get outside of that little confined box that it's created, all hell breaks loose and you end up fighting against it. That's just been my experience with model binding on any platform, whether it is web forms or Angular or any of the above. It just seems to get in the way. I don't know if you guys have had the similar experience, but that's been mine. And people seem to really like the idea of two-way model binding. Just not fitting what I'm doing, I guess. So I can get to the point here where I can trigger some validation now. I mean, I guess the normal use for a form is to have the web standard inputs and things. Line of business applications, all that stuff. You would have, those normal boxes. And I'm sure I'm doing a disservice here. Like, I don't think I can keyboard navigate these. I cannot. So that's probably an issue. So I may backtrack on this and rethink it. But I like the idea. I really like this idea. I think it looks slick. That all validated out. I get my total price. I like this idea a lot. I'd hate to abandon it, but it looks like it might be an accessibility nightmare. There's other websites. I keep going back to Delta. There's other ones, though, that have a similar setup here. See, we've got keyboard navigation on them. I have to investigate a little bit and see how they pulled that off. I think they have input boxes actually hidden underneath of these things. So you can keyboard navigate them. It may also just be the right attributes here. Tab index 0. Let's try that guy. This is just thought spiral. So let's rerun that just to see if I can tab to it at all, and then trigger it. If I can, I'll be happy. But there's probably some more tricks that I need to do to make that work, because I got all fancy and put in some flyout menus. But it sure knocked the form off the screen. That big old form doesn't have to be there anymore. Yeah, so I'm getting my tabs now, but there's no on click and enter don't seem to be the same event. So I'll have to do a little research into how to make these things work on activate, on copy, on double click, on drop, on focus, on key press. I might have to trigger some other events other than just click on activate. I don't think that's it. It's research time for me. There are tons of events we can bind to. Let's see what the best practices are, how we're doing some of our keyboard navigation stuff with our telluric components. All the telluric UI stuff, by the way, is keyboard navigation friendly. Maybe not in Blazor yet, but it's getting there. Some of it's working. We'll have to dive into the UX part of this later. And I think I'm done for today. I'm going to work on this a little bit offline and see what kind of results I can get. And I will report back on the next show how I changed it, hopefully for the better. Or this branch goes in the trash, which it's okay. That's why we're doing prototypes. But for today, at least we learned some things. We learned a lot about the validator and how it works internally. We were able to create very quickly a custom validator that captured the value we needed and provided it since there's no API for it. We're able to trigger validation through it. That was kind of cool. At least I know that now for the future. If there's something that changes my model from the outside of the form and I want to trigger validation up based on that, I can do it. So good learning experience anyway. Worst case scenario, I think, for me, if none of this works and it's just too much of an accessibility issue, which it could be. I mean, I could be making an accessibility nightmare, and that's not cool. I could publish it as a demo project, and people might get inspiration from it and make their own accessibility nightmares. That's not what I'm trying to do. So one of the alternatives to this would be to still have this, but put the entire form inside of a flyout panel. That would make it quite lengthy again, but it would simplify the accessibility problems. So instead of each individual flyout, you'd have one big one, go through all the gyrations. When you're done, you would come back to this screen. That is also a doable idea. That may be where I end up. I'm not sure yet. This is the thought experiment so far. I kind of like the individual flyouts. Maybe that's too many clicks. I don't know. Maybe I'm adding too many things to that to make it happen. In order just to get that and make this look clean. Still look clean if I can move the form off to a pop out, but I really like that Delta inspiration there. They seem to have figured it out. Quite custom, I believe. But enter triggers their keyboard navigation. And it navigates you right through it. I like that too. I like the their validation triggers a label that points to the 3 items that are invalid and actually navigates you to it or highlights it. Very nice. Nicely done. Let's go to United and see what they have. Just curiosity. Now they've just got the big form on their page. They got a big old form with tabs and... Oh, this is ugly. This is what I don't want, right? Holy nightmare. Look at this. Look at all this. Wow. That's a lot. A lot to take in. They've gone mystery meat right here. They just put everything in tabs. Dumped it all on the page. Southwest. What do we got? Same thing. Just a big panel of stuff. But it does tab nicely when you go through it. Still like the Delta the best so far. Interesting. Alrighty. Let's take a look and see who is online. We can go raid somebody today. Who is online? Looks like Chef Fritz might still be online. Says he's live. And then when I click on him, it says he's offline. Let's see who we've got. Relevant Jess is still streaming. We've raided him I don't know how many times this week. I don't know if we want to raid him again. Does anybody have any suggestions? Thanks, McNerdies. Thanks for joining me in my madness today. I get through this app and we will have some... Oh, Clark.io seems to be online. Let's go raid Clark. He raided us back a few weeks ago. We'll go raid him today. Whoa, that is not Clark. I don't know what I typed in here. Clark.io. There we go. Let's see. He may be wrapping up. Let me double check. No, he's still online. We're going to go visit Clark.io. Thanks for joining me today, guys and ladies. Clark, why can't I raid you, buddy? It has been a busy week. All right, my raid button is not working. So I am unable to raid. Looks like I'm having a little Twitch problem here. So we will not be raiding today. I'll jump over to Clark's channel if you want to give him a watch. There's lots of other good streams going on right now. I'll be back, not next week. I have travel next week. So if I do stream, it will be very improvised. I will see you all in, let's see, I think the week before Codepalooza, the week of Codepalooza, I will try to stream on like Monday or something, see what's going on. But until I announce something, I don't know when I'll have time again for the next few weeks. So keep an eye on my Twitter profile if you want to see when I'm streaming, or click the follow button. You should get a notification letting you know when I'll be online. There is a new channel coming up here soon. Let me get that for you guys as well. So twitch.tv. Let's see if I can do a mention here. At Code It Live. Let's see if it's not working either. Code It Live will be another channel I'll be appearing on. Very soon. Make sure you guys give this a follow. Keep an eyeball on that. It's called Code It Live. It's going to be a collection of streamers that'll be joining that channel soon and providing some streams on all sorts of topics. JavaScript, .NET, Xamarin, Kinvey, all sorts of stuff will be on there. Native script, you name it. We'll try to cover it. We've got schedule being built right now, and streamers being roped into that. So we'll all be learning together and setting that group up pretty soon. So make sure you guys subscribe, or not subscribe, but follow that channel so you get notified when we finally kick it off and we go live. So thanks for joining me today, and you guys have a great week. Bye-bye.